Well, hey, everybody, this is Don, and this is
Tenkar, folks.
with the Vlog of Many Things. Welcome to the last video official of the year. So 2024.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, that's right. Today is New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve. And we have a new banner up top. As you all seen, a new intro. So there's going to be some changes happening in 2024. I am staying on the show, so we do have the hot guy staying.
Where else would you go, man? What the hell?
I even polished my head for this. So.
Hey, wait. I combed my hair.
You got hair, I don't.
Oh, good looking.
Yes, sir. You are one sexy man.
I don't know about that. I don't want to go so far.
Yeah, I don't know. So last show of the year, we're going to talk a little bit about who else, Wizards of the Coast. And we're going to be back this coming week. We got a whole bunch of good stuff coming for Vlog of Many Things. We've got all kinds of interesting stuff. So, Eric, do tell, what shall we talk about in today's video?
Well, today's video, I woke up to PMs via Discord and Facebook linking to an article on Fox News. And just before everybody goes, oh my God, Fox News, the actual Fox News article is referring to an article or a report from the New York Times. So
they're reporting on another reporting that was done on a reporting.
Right, which is what we're going to report on.
Yes.
If you can follow that, you've got a future. Right. So the article in Fox News is Dungeons & Dragons causes controversy with rule change over identity. Some character traits have been divorced from biological identity, a New York Times report reveals.
And they use wording. They're choosing their wording very carefully.
Definitely. Listen, when it comes to mainstream media, you can listen to a news report and within 10 seconds go, New York Times, MSNBC, CNN. You can listen. You don't have to see the graphics. You don't have to identify the voice. You just got to see how the words are being used.
It's pretty easy.
Oh, and of course, there I get the video going through. But listen, and the reason is, as we were taught in the police academy, you paint a picture with your words, and you can have the same incident. However you paint it is how it's going to be perceived. So take that for what it's worth. And why did? Oh my God! The Fox News happened to give me something about an article about an LAX airplane, but in any case,
airplanes have been in the news lately.
Yeah, a lot of them. So the article goes on. Listen, Rob Kuntz actually gets involved in this article.
Really?
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. Some character traits have been divorced from biological identity. A mountain dwarf is no longer inherently brawny and durable. A high elf is no longer intelligent and dexterous by definition, a report in the New York Times explains. And Wizards of the Coast, the Dungeons & Dragons publisher owned by Hasbro, has endorsed a trend throughout role-playing games in which players are empowered to halt the proceedings if they ever feel uncomfortable.
Well, that's actually true because they actually talk about that in the Dungeon Master's Guide in the very beginning. They have the big disclaimer, but they also kind of go into making making players uncomfortable and such.
Right. The company also now suggests that extended Dungeons & Dragons campaigns begin with sessions allowing players to lay out their expectations and which topics they wish to avoid. While what they're trying to do here is put up a signal flare to not only current players but potential future players that this game is safe, inclusive, thoughtful, and sensitive approach to fantasy storytelling, said Ryan Lazard, a writer and frequent Dungeons & Dragons dungeon master, according to the report. So again, this is Fox News quoting from the New York Times article.
Interesting.
But some gamers are frustrated, and this is where we get to Rob. It's an unnecessary thing. Robert J. Kuntz, an award-winning game designer who frequently collaborated with Gary Gygax, the co-creator of D&D, told the New York Times. It's an attempt to play into something that I'm not sure is even worthy of addressing, as if the word race is bad.
Well, they now have changed race to species.
Right. And other publishers are using heritage.
Yeah.
It's Wizards of the Coast executives defended the new rules by saying players desired greater leeway in creating their characters, but some have slammed the attempt at a more inclusive game that some argue comes at the expense of the game's authenticity.
Well, there's I think where an interesting thing is okay, authenticity. All right, the basic premise of Dungeons and Dragons is you can pretty much do anything that you want.
Yeah.
So really, the only thing I mean, I'm sure people commenting will add their 2 cents to this, and I want that. But as far as your opinion goes on this, mine is this: is really it's been an unwritten rule anyways since D&D first began the early days. They're just codifying it and putting it in writing now as a formal thing. I mean, people all the time, me growing up, I've been playing D&D since 77, and
Mhm.
it's not been uncommon for people to go, oh, I don't like this type of game or I don't like that type of game. They're just taking it up another step, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. Part of I think what's going on here though too is that there is a certain large segment of players that believe the rules as written are the rules as written. You got to run with it. So if in D&D 2014, and this is me using Watts'
Yeah.
nomenclature for the two versions of 5e, if you are a D&D 2014 player where you chose dwarf and that was +2 to constitution and I don't know, -2 to charisma, and now there are no racial adjustments or bonuses or heritage or species adjustments, whatever the word you want to use, it really vanilla turns the game into vanilla. It turns it into something
I agree.
where your choices, people are talking, you got more choices, but no, you're actually saying that your choices doesn't matter. Your
That's right.
choices are merely trappings. It isn't like, well, I want to play a brawny dwarf, and I
But
want to be a dwarf because it has certain things that I like. No, and I could play a goblin and get those same bonuses now.
But the thing is, that's the whole inherent thing about what made to me.
Mhm.
Again, Don's opinion only on the side of the
Right.
camera. But to me, what made the game inherently so much fun was the flexibility of why why play a dwarf versus an elf? Why choose a half orc, over a half elf? It's because of the fact that you had to kind of craft your character because each
Exactly.
race and each class combined even did weird things and
And that's all that's been taken away. Now, again, maybe some people are obviously they did their market all right. Assuming they did their market research, and I would say
assume. And
um,
remember the first 3 letters of assume.
yes, but assuming they did their market research, I could see how they could go, oh, well, players just want more flexibility.
Yeah.
But you know what? Players also want more power because that is what players want, right?
But that's what 5e or 5.5 we'll call it is doing though. I mean, it's
Right.
meta power gaming.
But here's the thing. When it comes to something like an entertainment, do you give them what they want or do you have
Yep.
to make them somewhat earn some of what they want? Because that's what brings them
Yep.
back. If they get everything up front, then why are they going to come back for session 2 and 3? It becomes
Well, why
very
have
vanilla.
levels then? There's
Right.
levels are immaterial if you're not gonna do that.
So the article then goes on to talk about the X thread with Musk and
Of course,
I,
they got to drop the politics into it.
yeah, and I personally think that is less relevant, but I do think that the fact that WotC, as the year closes out, this article is dated the 30th around 5 p.m. Eastern, but
Mm-hmm.
for an article to come out at the end of the year based on a New York Times report, which means article, but I guess they're calling it a report because it sounds more impressive.
Yeah, they
Um,
reported on this.
you know, for the New York Times to be covering this at the end of the year, I'm sure it wasn't in their news section. It was in their entertainment. And
Yeah,
I haven't picked up a New York Times physically in probably over a decade, but it tells you that D&D is still in the mindset of the world at large, and changes in the game are going to be uh, focused on. You
yeah,
know,
Eric. I mean, that's the thing. People, but see, to me, there's always been one premise of D&D that I've always we talked about a little bit before we went live here, or we went on the recording here, and that is one of the things that is unique about Dungeons and Dragons is the fact, like right now, I have right here on this shelf, right there, as few books there is right now, just there, not to mention the other ones, right there on that shelf, I have enough D&D material that I could start playing again at 5 years old and have enough if I live to be 150.
oh God, yeah, you
Because,
and I both met many of us.
well, because me and you do something that I think a lot of younger players, and I'm not trying to be mean here, but let's face it, imagination is like the ground stone, the foundational stone of D&D. And what WotC is doing is WotC is trying to, not saying people are not imaginative today, they are. I mean, I see it every day in groups, but what WotC's trying to do is WotC's trying to say, you don't really got to think about that. We got this all taken care of for you. Here's the book. Here's the thing. And that's what happened with 5e was they came out with a book for everything. And I think they overpopulated the game with
Right,
content,
I think you're right.
you know? So imagination, people, use your imagination like you. When you're at a convention, you yourself have said that you kind of just wing it a lot of times.
Yeah, I'll take the bare bones of the adventure, and I know where it's going to go, but depending on my party and how fast they move or how slow they move, you got to change things around. You can't be
Yeah.
set in stone. You got to
No.
react to your party, especially at a convention.
Yeah, and I think there's where what WotC's is trying to do is I think they're just trying to do too much. They're trying to make everybody happy, but the problem is that everybody's not going to be happy with the product. So they're doing these knee jerk, trying to they're running around trying to put fingers in the leaking holes
and
in the
and they're
gut.
trying not to offend anybody.
Yes.
That's the whole thing. And when you worry about offending nobody, in essence, you're probably going to offend everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, and to say inherently what you're saying here, and maybe I'm taking this a step too far, is that all species, all heritages, all races in D&D 2024 are equal.
Hmm.
And the what I always found to be the fun of D&D and fantasy role playing was that the races especially weren't equal, but
Hmm.
they all had their own little specialties that they all
Yeah.
excelled at, and that's what gave the game its depth and its balance.
Hmm.
And if you're telling me that the dwarf and the dwarf is going to be as dexterous as the halfling's going to be as strong as the
Yeah.
dwarf, it doesn't make a difference,
It
then
doesn't make sense.
make everything. I think what you're telling me is essentially every, uh, using their words, I guess, species is essentially a human with different physical trappings
Yeah.
that don't affect the game. And that to me says, then why do you bother including them?
Well,
What is the point?
well, not only that, but I'm going to use a really bad word when it comes to D&D, and that is because I know people are going to go, it's not realistic then, because you cannot tell me that, and I'm going to be mean here, sounding maybe to some people, but you cannot tell me that a 5'11", 140-pound lean elf
Mm-hmm.
is equally as dexterous or lack of dexterous as a 4'10", 225-pound dwarf.
Right.
You know, there's just no. I mean, don't tell me that elf cannot outrun that dwarf and cannot outclimb that dwarf and all that. And that's part of the balance you just talked about. I think that they're now getting away from is, like you said, they're so worried about offending everybody that they don't want to offend people. So they're trying to figure out ways of doing it. But what they're doing is they are offending people because it's offending people's their common sense.
Yeah, your sensibilities. It's like, and again, why even bother with the various species
Yeah.
if they aren't going to have an effect?
But think about something you just did, and I'm doing it too. We almost are hesitant to use the word species or race because why? We don't want to offend people.
Right.
And this is where we're at with D&D these days. You know what? To me, it's a race. You know what? I'm not some white nationalist, goose-stepping brown shirter because I use the word race in a game.
Right.
Okay? I'm not being insensitive to people. And that's the problem is Watsy's running around going, oh, we're really paranoid. We don't want to be considered insensitive or, lack of empathy towards people. You can play the game and have empathy and respect for people. Play the game. Use your imagination.
Right.
Um, and it's just like, if you're playing a D&D game and you have somebody at the table that as an example, let's say they're a family member, they have a history of SA in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could be more decent and say this module has, maybe it's an older module that has, a theme of, SA or kidnapping. I'm going to kind of modify that a little bit out of sensitivity towards this person. But Watsy's just taken it to these far extremes about just can't offend anybody, can't do anything to offend people. And it's
Right.
like, you're not even offending people. You're worried about something that's not there.
Well, it then you're lowering. Generally speaking, when you do that, you're not raising things up. You're usually trying to find the lowest common denominator and settling at that. And I mean, do you have to play 2024 with these exact rules? No, of course not. You can house rule it, but the majority of players are going to go, well, that's not what's in the player's handbook. That's not what's in the DMG.
Yep.
And there becomes a bit of an issue. So again, they can claim that D&D 2024 is the same game as D&D 2014, but when they tell you can't use the same, you can't mix the rule books from you can't take your 2014 player's handbook and mix it with the 2024 DMG because you can't cross the streams. It tells you that they're different games. It simply does.
Yep. Well, and that's that.
Wow, folks! What a way to end the new year.
18 minutes ending new year. We're going to be at 20 minutes by the time this is over with. We got 1 minute left. So Eric and everybody else, I hope you and Rach have a very happy new year. We are coming to see you and me and Tina.
Yes.
And
folks, real quick, tonight, 11:30 p.m. Eastern, Rach and I are doing a live stream for New Year's Eve. If you wish to join us in the live itself, okay, there will be a link to the Discord in the show notes to this very video on my end. Join the Discord, go to the Gamers Health section. By around 6 p.m. or so, there should be a link for the live stream so you can join us on screen, drop in, drop out. We'll be in for about an hour and a half. We'll celebrate Eastern and Central time with you all.
All righty. And everybody, for those of you who's seeing this, hope you had a good New Year. Stay safe.
Yep.
And,
be good. God bless.
All right. And we will see you in, about another year?
Oh, yeah. Year, day, whatever the case may be.
Whatever it is. Everybody, have a good weekend.
You're good.